And hello, dearest readers. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Victoria, and welcome to my newest series.
What are you reading?
Nothing. Dearest gentle reader.
As my little intro says, this newest series is aptly titled Whistledown Wishes. A little bit of a pun on the Lady Whistledown of Bridgerton. And it is a series where I'll be reading a classic written by a woman each month of 2025. I'm super excited about this series. I've been thinking about it for a little while, ruminating on it for a little while, and I thought Whistledown Wishes was a good selection because one, it wasn't gonna get me demonetized like my other option, which I really wanted to use, but I was a little concerned about. Not that I'm monetized, but I didn't want YouTube to be mad at me, just to be clear. And two, I think that the plot line for Penelope, especially in the show, but also in the books, of why she chooses to be Lady Whistledown is reminiscent of what a lot of our female authors really struggled with, especially a lot of the classics, depending on when they wrote their books. So I thought it would be a little fun pun on that of these ladies that we're going to be reading and exploring a little bit more about them, their lives, and their works throughout this year of 2025. So how this is going to work is I'm going to attempt to, one, read a novel from an author. They may have more, but probably like one of their more prominent ones. And two, I'm going to try to also learn a little bit more about this author, their contributions to the literary community, and impart some of that knowledge on you as well. In addition to that, I just want to make it clear that when I say classics, I'm also including like modern classics. I think, we just get a more variety of authors if I include modern classics. And two, it is difficult to find 12 who, are a variance of people and diversity, and just like 12 who, like, I don't know. I wanted like a variance of genres. I wanted to really explore the ladies who have made such a big impact on the literary world. So we are expanding what we are deeming classics here, which I think is just fine. Just for example, like I may read something like Kindred by Octavia Butler, because I do consider her to be a classic author when it comes to like the sci-fi genre. And also you have to consider that the sci-fi genre, as it stands right now, has not been around quite as long as some other types of stories. Unless you want to go maybe 20 Leagues Under the Sea, kind of. But you know what I mean. So there will be some variety on here. But that is enough of me rambling just about the in general principles of this challenge that we're going to be doing every month. All right, so enough talking about just the general semantics of how this is going to work. Let's talk about January's selection. As you would have seen in my little title intro, our first read of the year is going to be Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. I love every adaptation I have seen of Little Women, especially the one with directed by Greta Gerwig. I love that movie. I love it so much. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I'm planning on watching it again after reading this book because I think that would be lots and lots of fun. But there are two reasons that this book is first in our series here. My first reason is the book cover. So if you can see, this edition does include both Little Women and Good Wives. I'm only intending on reading Little Women in this video, but it has a pattern. And I am participating in Kayla from Books and Lala's Buzzword Challenge and Buzzword Cover Challenge. And the first cover challenge is a cover with a pattern. And this is literally one of the only books that I had with a cover with a pattern. So I thought it fit perfectly. The second reason is that I do think Louisa May Alcott has a special place in American literature specifically, and also American literature focusing on women. So I thought it would be interesting to read her book, which is a little capsule in time for a very certain type of family and a very certain type of young women living in the United States during the Civil War. So if you're not familiar with this book and the story of it, it follows the four, what's their last name? I was gonna say the May sisters. That's not right. March. I was close. I was close. I was like, no, it's not May. It's March. Okay, it follows the four March sisters. And like I said, they live during the Civil War and kind of just follows their journeys. It is loosely based off of Louisa May Alcott's life. She did, in fact, have four sisters. And from what I've read, and I will put the two articles that I found to be the most useful when just kind of getting a better idea of who the author Louisa May Alcott was, she was already a writer who had some published works, and she was asked by her publisher to write a book for young women. And to be honest, she was not all that excited about it. Interesting enough, Louisa May Alcott was taught by writers like Henry David Thoreau, Ralph Waldo Emerson, and Nathaniel Hawthorne. Her father was somebody who opened up schools, and he also had a very modern philosophy on education and wanting education to be fun. He also did believe in the education of women. So she had a very interesting upbringing, and she was always interested in writing. It is noted too that she experienced like bouts of sickness as she was older, because she did end up working in the medical unit during the Civil War and contracted typhoid fever. So she did rely more on writing when she got older, because she needed a form of income that was not going to require a lot of physical exertion. And so a lot of interesting things, but what I found most interesting was that she was not that keen to write a novel for young women. It wasn't what she was interested in at the time, but as she thought on it, she was trying to think about, oh, here, in this times piece, we'll just pull this out here. So for example, when she was asked, this is like pulled from her journal, and there is a biography, which maybe I'll read at some point in time, but pulled from her journal, she said, "I don't enjoy this sort of thing. Never liked girls or knew many except my sisters, but our queer plays and experiences may prove interesting, though I doubt it." With that in mind, she really did just do what every writing novice hears as advice, and she wrote what she knows. So she wrote about her and her four sisters and their time growing up during the Civil War in Massachusetts. And apparently, the first go of the story did not go well. It's not great, but, and this is a quote from that Time magazine article again, she decided to keep writing because lively, simple books are very much needed for girls, and perhaps I can supply the need. And then when the final manuscript was completed, and that is dated here in this article of August 26, 1868, she wrote that it was better than she expected, and it was simple and true, for we really lived most of it, and if it succeeds, that will be the reason for it. And it did. Little Women was released in multiple shorter stories instead of like the complete novel at first, which wasn't, I guess periodicals, wasn't all that unusual during that time, even time before. Books like Les Mis were also released in shorter chunks and then later put together as one book. So this isn't that abnormal for a classic to actually have been spread out. This article, the first volume came out September 30th, 1868, and the first edition quickly sold out within a couple months. So again, a reason I thought it was great for this to be one of my first choices for this challenge is that she really did construct a new genre. Even if it was something she was looking something she was necessarily looking to do, she made a very big impact on women readers. And I think that is super important. Without further ado, I think it's time to just jump on in to reading Little Women. I don't know if you just heard that, but my entire back cracked. Hello. It has been over a week, I think, since the last time I filmed anything. Not been feeling my best. And because of that, and other reasons, I have not been feeling Little Women. I am currently now like 40% of the way through Little Women. I actually picked up the audiobook to kind of help me move through it, because I do still intend on finishing this book. I do. I intend on it. It is getting better as I'm going. They introduced the character of Lori. I was like, once they kind of go to the ball and they meet Lori, things get a little bit more interesting. But overall, I don't really have the words, I feel like, to describe why I don't like this book. I think, to me, it really makes sense that this book is a product of its time period. There's a lot of like piety talk and different things like that, and what it means to be a good person and what it means to be, a good woman, I suppose. And like, from the stance of when this was written, a lot of this makes sense. But I think there's a couple things that bother me about the story, and I think it also has to do, like, now reading this, I totally see when they were saying that this was kind of a periodical release, because each chapter is kind of a snapshot into the girls' lives and something else has been going on. It's not like a cohesive narrative, kind of like I feel like in the movies they've turned it into a more cohesive narrative. I wouldn't say this is that. We're getting like each chapter is a little snapshot into something as the girls' lives progress. Yeah, I think a lot of it is the very like piety-based conversations that we're having in this book that just really don't resonate with me. Like, I like that the girls reflect and are trying to be better people. That's great. I just think because of the time frame and what they're focused on, it's just not something that really sits with me and really speaks to me personally. I will say right now, right here, I can say this with absolute certainty that I prefer any Jane Austen novel, even Sense and Sensibility, I think, to Little Women at the moment. I just don't feel much towards it, honestly. Yeah, that's all my thoughts right now. Well, there we go. Hi, I'm back again. Quick update. I am now on chapter 15, which puts me 75% of the way through Little Women. And yes, I have now realized that because often Little Women and Good Wives are put together, the adaptations go through to their adulthood. But it looks like here we will be ending where they're still quite young. Well, they were already young, but still my same thoughts, honestly. We had a little interlude where they have their little picket, what is it called? Like the picket, the PC and the PO in chapter 10, where we just had little stories from them for a second. We've had a little camping situation kind of day where Lori had some friends coming from the UK and they all hung out. We're getting inklings about Mr. Brooks and Meg possibly having a romance and Joe not liking the idea of it. We are just kind of seeing where the girls want to go and where Lori want to go later on in their life. And Joe has had her first story published. So that's kind of where we're at. I think I'm gonna take a break for the rest of the day from reading this because like I said, it is not a joy for me to read this book. I'm so sad. I am so sad that I don't like this book more. I really, really wanted to, but I'm just kind of bored. It is Friday, January 31st, the day that this video is coming up, and I finally finished Little Women. As I mentioned in my last update, this book is both Little Women and Good Wives, which are part 1 and part 2 of the March Sisters. I am not reading Good Wives in this vlog, and maybe any, to be honest, because I didn't like this. I didn't. I think I talked about it a little bit before. This could just perhaps be timing-wise because I just have not been feeling great the last 2 weeks. So perhaps it just wasn't the time to read Little Women. So maybe one day we'll go back and revisit. But I was just bored, honestly, the entire time. Just bored. Just really, really thoroughly bored. I did not want to listen to this book. I did not want to read it. In fact, I think I mentioned I read 3 other books before picking this one up because I just could not. I just had no desire. And it's so unfortunate because I really do like the adaptations of Little Women. I think it may just be because in the movie it's going to go faster. And this may just be a story that is not meant for me in written form. Because I just couldn't connect with these sisters. I couldn't. I didn't really have much connection to them. We had, at the end of this book, we had Beth's first bout of scarlet fever, which comes up pretty early in the movie from what I remember. I mean, we basically wrapped up in a year. So we started with Christmas, that's how we open the story, and we pretty much end a little bit after Christmas. We have the first proposal of Away with Mr. Brooks, who is Lori's tutor, and him proposing in a way to Meg, but going to be a long engagement, it seems like, because her parents decide she's too young to get married and he wants to amass some wealth and be able to provide for her. And Jo is unhappy because she doesn't want her sister to leave, but everybody else is very excited. Mr. March has come back. He came back around Christmas. He came back on Christmas, I do believe. He came back on Christmas, which in the beginning we found out that he went off to the Civil War, as a chaplain, and he ends up getting sick here in this last third part of the book. And so Mrs. March goes away to take care of him with Mr. Brooks, and that's kind of how he gets endeared to the family. And then Miss March comes back early because Beth was really down for the count, and they weren't sure where things were going to go for her in the story. Jo also cut her hair, which I do believe is something that is highlighted in the movie as well, to give Marmee some money to take to Mr. March to help him get better. And Amy becomes more endeared to Aunt March, which we do see in the film adaptations as well. I'm sure she goes off and learns more about her art and such in Good Wives. But yeah, it just really wasn't for me. I just couldn't be bothered. Perhaps I will pick it up again in a different time and place and enjoy it more, but I'm giving this book 2 stars. I thoroughly did not enjoy it. I just did not enjoy it. I felt like a chore the entire time. I just couldn't connect with it. I just couldn't. So we didn't DNF Little Women. I thought about it. Sure did, but we did not. So we completed this. Our buzzword challenge is completed for the covers for January and the last day. And we have officially finished our first book in the Whistledown Wishes series. So that was exciting. I'm glad we did it. I have yet to pick my next book for February. But it is interesting, I think, for my first 2 choices that all of the authors I'm looking at right now are American authors. So if you have authors, whether they're translated or just they're English but outside of the UK or the States, please feel free to drop them down below, because I would love to include more translated works as well. I'd love to find some classics that are going to bring diversity not only by ethnicity, but also by location in which they were born. So I would like to be able to bring different countries in the mix in this as well, if I can. So trying to do that. But obviously, since I'm looking for works in English and classics in English, sometimes we get a little narrowed into the States and the UK, which obviously both countries do have diverse populations, and so I can still have a lot of diversity in the authors, but I would also like to have country diversity as well, because talking about different historical things is very interesting, and I find it a great way to learn about a country's history through relevant fiction pieces. So if you do have those recommendations, feel free to drop them down below, because I would love to hear them. And if you enjoyed this video, I'd love it if you give it a thumbs up, and if you want to stick around for more bookish and nerdish content. I upload every Wednesday, except for last Wednesday, but sorry. I upload every Wednesday and most Sundays. And until next time, I hope you read a good book. I hope you find some joy, and most importantly, I hope you do something to make the world a better place. And I will see you in my next one. Bye!